Noor and Dr. Nurjudana binti Abdul Majid and my fellow friends. My name is Amira Intan Suraya binti Sohaimi and Rin Krishna binti Muhammad Zulkifli as your moderator for today's event with Nurul Farah Aliza binti Aldana as your timekeeper for today's presentation session. Before we start, I would like to read the rules and regulations that need to be complied during the whole event. The time allotted for the presentation session is only 15 minutes. The time allotted for the question and answer session, Q&A, is 5 minutes only and starts when the presenter starts responding. The panel can only start asking questions when the presentation session has ended. The participant will be reminded once in the 10 minutes of the presentation and twice in the 15 minutes the presentation marking the end. And the question and answer session will begin. Questions from panel of assessors should take precedence over other panels. The moderator reserves the right to stop the participant or assessor during the question and answer session if it is found to have exceeded the stipulated time period. So are you all ready? Now let's start the ceremony with the first presenter, Azimatul Najiha binti Muhammad Farus from TESOL 1 to present her presentation. Please welcome.
Hello and Assalamualaikum everyone. So today I will be presenting my research paper entitled Improving U1 Pupils Pronunciation in the Voiceless and Voice TH Phonics using Program. So let's get started. Alright, so first of all, my background of study. So I have two major categories for my background. The first one is from the aspect of mother tongue tools. So the voiceless and voice TH phonemes are in existence in the sound system of the Malay language, and thus the Malay language lacks aspirated sound or fricatives, which is in this case the voiceless and voice TH phonemes, and thus the non-native English speakers will be unable to produce enough aspirated sound, which means that they will be transmitting their patterns of Malay language, since they are the native speakers of Malay, into English when they are speaking English, and thus they will have the difficulties in correctly pronouncing the voiceless and voice TH phonemes. The second aspect is from the lack of emphasis in the teaching of English pronunciation. So, the teaching of pronunciation is largely marginalized in Malaysia due to lack of teaching and learning materials developed regarding this skill. So, pronunciation is a very crucial skill that needs to be mastered. But due to lack of stress in the teaching of pronunciation, this topic is usually being neglected by teachers. Apart from that, teachers also have inadequate knowledge or training in imparting pronunciation lessons, since they often pay little to no attention in the teaching of pronunciation. All right, so I have two problem statements. The first one is that the teaching of pronunciation receives inadequate weightage in school, since teachers often stress on other skills such as listening, reading, writing, and grammar. So, when we have lack of emphasis in the teaching of pronunciation, the pupils will have difficulties in mastering the skill. Apart from that, the inexistence of these phonemes in the Malay language sound system makes it harder for the year one pupils to correctly distinguish and pronounce the phonemes. Alright, so this is my purpose of study. It is to improve the year one pupils' pronunciation difficulties in the voiceless and voice TH phonemes, and also increase their interest in pronunciation lessons by creating an intervention called ProGame. So I have two research objectives: to improve year one pupils' pronunciation in voiceless and voice TH phonemes using ProGame, and also to increase year one pupils' interest in pronunciation lessons using ProGame. Two research questions. The first one is, does the use of ProGame improve the year one pupils' pronunciation of voiceless and voice TH phonemes? And the second one is, does the use of ProGame increase year one pupils' interest in pronunciation lessons? Alright, so for my significance of research, I have two. The first one is for the Malaysian teachers. So this study will help raise awareness on the importance of the teaching and learning of pronunciation in Malaysia, since it receives little focus in the Malaysian classrooms. So as I mentioned earlier, the teaching of pronunciation in Malaysia is often marginalized by teachers because they often scramble to teach other skills in the English language. Apart from that, it is also to help the year one people in improving their pronunciation in the set phonics, voiceless and voice PH, and also increase their interest in the pronunciation lesson. So I have four related past research that can be divided into two major categories. The first one is the difficulties in pronouncing the voiceless and voice PH phonics among the Malaysian primary school pupils. So Sharp, Lee, and Stephen did a key study on the pronunciation problems for low proficient students. So their study um, aim to realize what are the phonemes that the pupils often mispronounce and the reason that contribute to this cause. Why are these phonemes often mispronounced by the students? Apart from that, Nur Bazila and also Nur Ain did a mixed method study, qualitative and also quantitative methodology. They aim to find the challenges in teaching pronunciation in Malaysian secondary schools. So they are both secondary school teachers, and they realized that the teaching of pronunciation in Malaysia have a few challenges. They interviewed 6 teachers, and they found that among the challenges are from the aspect of pedagogical issue, lack of confidence, time constraint, and also lack of training. And then for the second category, which are improving primary school people's pronunciation, in TH, in voiceless and voice TH phonemes using intervention. So Caracas and Chandan did develop an intervention called audio-lingual method and also audio articulation method. So they identified that their students, or they are Turkish teachers, so identified their students that have a problem in pronouncing the voiceless and voice TH phonemes correctly. So they developed a study and intervention to overcome this problem. And they realized after they have implemented the intervention on their students, they realized that their students have significantly improved their pronunciation. And then Beltran, Andret, and also Alvarez also developed an intervention called phonics instruction, because they also realized that their students have problem in correctly pronouncing the phonics. And then after they have implemented the intervention, they realized that from the findings, the students have managed to correctly pronounce the phonics. And then for my research design, my research design is action research. And I employed the chemist and McTaggart action research model for my research. These models have 2 cycles, which are cycle 1 and cycle 2. And in each model, in each cycle, it has 4 steps, which are plan, action, observe, and also reflect. So for my population example, I have 3 research participants, and my research participants are selected based on the preliminary investigation and analysis that I have conducted before. And they are 3 year 1 Ibnu Sina pupils from Sekolah Kebangsaan Ampang Tinggi in Kuala Pilah, Negeri Sembilan. So the names used in this study are pseudonyms. They are not their actual names. The first one is Faris, second one is Damia, and the third one is Akib. So I have 2 male people and 1 female people for my study. So this is my intervention, the pro game. So my intervention is basically a board game, but with a little twist. So this is the board for my pro game. It contains 46 tiles with 4 different pronunciation games. The first game is odd one out, in which there are 3 different words, in which all of the words contain TH phonemes. But then the trick is that the pupils will have to distinguish which one of them contain voiceless TH phoneme and which one of them contain voice TH phoneme. And then they will have to pick the odd word out. Meanwhile, for the tongue twister, this is quite self-explanatory. They will have to pronounce the tongue twister that they pick from the cards given correctly. But fret not if they make mistake in pronouncing the words. The moderator, which is also the researcher, will be correcting their pronunciation. And then for dictation, the researcher will be pronouncing the words and the sentences, and then the research participant will be writing the words correctly. So with this way, they will have to correctly distinguishing which one is voiceless phoneme and which one is voice TH phoneme. And then for the sound pictures, the research participant will have to randomly pick a card, and then the card contain a random word that contain a TH word. And so they will have to draw or act out the word. Meanwhile, the other players will guess the word in a series of shorthand memory. And then this is my research procedure. First of all, I pick a design and also choose a title for my study. And then I write the proposal and then submit it. Then after I have got the feedback and also did alterations for my study, I will choose my research participants based on my preliminary investigation. And then after I have chosen my research participants, I will be implementing my pre-intervention questions to them. And then I will be implementing my intervention, the program. After I have done so, I will be collecting my data in the form of interview, observation, and also document analysis. And then I will analyze the data, and lastly, I will write the research. So this is my data collection procedure. For document analysis, I have pre and post intervention and also participant feedback form. So for my pre and post intervention, I have two sections which contain 20 questions each. So for the first section, the pupils will have to distinguish the voiceless and voice TH phonics by underlining and also searching the word. And then for the second section, the pupil will have to pronounce the word containing the TH phonics correctly. And for the participants' feedback form, there are 6 statements in the form. They will have to respond in the form of emoji. There are 3 emoji, which are happy emoji, sad emoji, and also a confused emoji. For the observation, my observation protocol contains 6 areas that will be observed by me. I will be acting as both researcher and also observer for my research participants. And then for my interview, I will be conducting a semi-structured interview protocol with 4 questions. So I did a semi-structured because I will not be confined to a list of predetermined questions, and thus it is easier for me to omit or change the questions. For my data analysis procedure, for the pre and post intervention, since I have a pronunciation recording, I will be transcribing the recording, and then I will be evaluating their scores, and then I will be analyzing their scores. And then for the participant feedback form, I will be evaluating their responses, that is in the form of emoji, and then I will analyze their form. Then as for observation, the remarks for each area, the 6 areas, will be evaluated and then analyzed. And for the interview session that were recorded earlier will be transcribed and then analyzed. So this is my data findings. For post-intervention, I realized that the pupils have incredible increment of scores in the post-intervention for both cycles for all the research participants. And then for the feedback form, I received overall positive feedbacks from the research participants in both cycle 1 and 2. Meanwhile, for the observation, I realized that the research participant developed a positive behavior and interest towards the intervention in both cycles. For the interview, after conducting the interview, the research participants stated that the intervention has successfully assisted them in pronouncing the voiceless and voice TH phonemes correctly. So, for my discussion, the first research objective was achieved as the research participants' pronunciation of the voiceless and voiced TH phonemes significantly improved after the intervention implementation. Then, the second research objective was also fulfilled as the research participants' interest in pronunciation lessons increased based on the analysis of observation, interview, and document analysis. So my last discussion is that this research also validated the study titled The Teaching of Voiceless and Voiced TH Sounds in English that I've mentioned earlier in my past research, because this study did develop an intervention to improve the pronunciation of TH phonemes, and I did the same, and we received the same findings. For my conclusion, for my strengths, this study is highly relevant to both teacher and primary school people, since the pronunciation topic is one of the most highly sought topic in schools. And then the information used in the study is also portable, which makes it ideal for teachers to use in the classroom. And then for weaknesses, this intervention was built exclusively to improve the year one people's pronunciation in the voiceless and voiced TH phonemes, just these two phonemes. And the second one is that this research mainly focused on improving the year one pupils' pronunciation, when pupils of other level, year 2, 3, 4, and 5, also struggle in pronouncing the TH phonemes. So for my recommendation is that this research can be exploited further to improve the pupil pronunciation in other commonly mispronounced phonemes, such as the short and long vowels. Because as according to Sri Kandi Trinaru and Shafiq Iswari 2014, they said that the pupils also have difficulties in pronouncing the short and long vowels, because in Bahasa Melayu, the A alphabet only have one pronunciation. Antarabangsa, Amalan, Antara, the same pronunciation. But for English, we have different pronunciation. We have asterisk and amalgamation, different pronunciation for one alphabet. For the second recommendation is that this research can also be expanded to year 2, 3, 4, and 5 people, because it is noticed that the pronunciation problem does not only affect the year 1. So the last one is that the intervention in study is beneficial to both teacher and pupils in primary school in promoting the element of fun learning using the educational board game, because entertainment is essential in instilling the element of fun learning, and my intervention that I use have the requirement needed to instill this element in primary school people. So that's all from me. Thank you.
Congratulations and thank you for your presentation. This ceremony will now continue with a Q&A session. Please welcome Mr. Azman bin Muhammad Noor and Dr. Nurjana binti Abdul Majid to ask any questions to present.
Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Teman-teman, ya. Okay, presentation. Okay, so sorry. Presentation. Okay, to be honest, okay, I consider good presentation. To be honest, thank you for the topic. So for year one, I'm leaving for me. Okay, so sorry for that. So it's a normal post here. Okay, we go to questioning and session, something like that. Okay. Yep. So but then normally for year one, to be good for one session, for example, this angle, something that's not what we use, and then mentioned just now. Okay. What is it about see, because of research, raise awareness. So normally for year one, so teacher practice for me. Okay, so it's happening. Yeah, we realize this one. Other year one, year two, one well. Yeah. Okay. The question. Okay. So don't worry. So because I'm busy, so I can put the topic well. Okay, so we go for one. Yeah. Okay, about that one. So because you realize that you not go and consult your okay. Okay, purpose of the study. Okay, okay, sorry. Significance of the research. What is the significance of research?
To help raise awareness
To have awareness
for the Malaysian teachers,
for the Malaysian teacher.
to include more teaching of pronunciation in their lesson.
Okay. Okay, and then okay, go to your recommendation. Okay, so you realize that your research is to define significance material to help education teachers.
Yes.
So what is your recommendation there based on your finding?
I realized that after conducting my research, that my study can be exploited and improvised further so that it can benefit.
No, I mean, so you realize that the reason why you will for significant research, you have to find kind of ways to help teachers to teach short verbal, non verbal. Okay, consider. Okay. So, so based on your study, what is your recommendation?
Based on my study,
Uh-huh.
I recommend that my intervention, the program, be used by teachers in other schools, in rural area, in urban schools, so that they can improve the pronunciation of the voiceless and voice TH phonemes for their pupils. Since the difficulties in pronouncing these phonemes does not only affect the rural area pupils, but also the urban area pupils.
Okay, so what is the characteristic of intervention here?
My characteristic. So my intervention resembles a board game, but with a little twist. So the usual board game usually consists of a play counter, a dice, and then the player will move from one tile to another. So I employed the same concept here to my intervention, but I employed a different pronunciation game for each type. So in that way, I will be drilling their pronunciation in the TH phonemes.
So that's your recommendation.
Yes.
Yeah, that's all. Yeah. So we research and recommendation. That's what we find recommendation. Okay, this section here means suggestion for further research. Yeah, but okay. Okay. So in your research, you have how many loops here? Many loops. Research design.
Research design.
Okay, you use
I use the chemistry
okay, how many loops
model
you have there? Two loops.
for cycle, two
Okay,
loops.
2 loops. Okay. Okay, so can you describe your process here?
So for my first cycle, I will plan my research, I will plan my study, I will develop my intervention, I will develop my instrument for data collection, and then during the action step, I will be implementing my intervention to my research participants. And then after that, I will observe the data that I've collected, the intervention that I've implemented, I will observe. And then after that, I will reflect and do the necessary modifications. And then for my cycle 2, I have done the necessary modifications for my intervention. And then I will do the same step. I will implement the intervention on my research participants. And then I will collect my data. And then I will observe the data. And then lastly, I will reflect on my data if there are any strengths or weaknesses that can be improved.
Okay, can you go to your research procedure? Okay, research procedure. Okay, so how many do we have here?
8.
Of course, mention a proposal, research participant, report writing, papers, data analysis. So you have 1, I think. Okay, so 3 intervention.
Yes.
Okay. So intervention, then you revise your intervention. Okay, and then you go for second loop.
But second loop will only consist from step 4 until step 7. The first loop will consist of step 1 until step 7. And then the second loop will consist from step 4 until step 7.
Okay. Okay, that's all. Okay. Yeah, that's all. Okay, thanks.
I'm sorry, before that, Dr. Juliana, do you want to add anything?
Okay. All like okay. For this one, actually a lot of so I think it's okay. Okay. You should very although I have used pseudonyms since they are this much fun. What is okay. For next slide, definition. Okay. Okay. What one? Are you sure that your this one what can you sign to attract student attention in the class? Yes, of course, because it is colorful and it is well known that the year one pupils usually attracted to colorful things. Okay. All right. Okay. But we are trying to right? Because okay, this is my suggestion. It's not more conventional. Okay. Maybe you can for the next session. Okay. Let's get more like like that. So student jadi dia orang more effect untuk kita. So dia at the end of the result.
Thank you, Dr. Asman and Dr. Juliana. Thank you. Now, please welcome the next presenter, Nadia Farahin binti Nasaruddin from TESOL 2 to present her presentation. Please welcome.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and very good evening to my fellow friends and fellow 1, fellow 2, Tajuk and Sir Azman. So first of all, thank you for giving me opportunity to present my thesis entitled Using Perza to Improve Year 1 Pupils' Difficulties on the Preposition of Place. Before we move deeper, let's look at the background of the study. Since English is the second language practiced by the most Malaysian, in our daily life, grammar also become the most problem faced by the language learners in order to speak, to learn, or to listen, or to write in English. And grammar has always been considered as an essential substance in teaching and learning English language. And under grammar, we have nouns, pronouns, verbs, adverbs, conjunctions, and preposition. And in this study, I would like to highlight on the preposition of this, where preposition of this allow us to be very specific in indicating a place of something or someone is located. Okay, let's look at the statement of the problem for this study. Year 1 pupils in Sekolah Kebangsaan Lubuk Kerubi was facing difficulties in using preposition of place. And look at the figure I attached here. The 1, 2, 3 are the sources of the problem. The difficulties in using preposition of place may due to the first language interference. As I mentioned before, we always use bahasa. We also have introduced to the only prepositions of this in bahasa, which is di kelas, di bilik, dan di pejabat. But compared to English language, we have three preposition place, which are in, on, and under. In a classroom, in the toilet, under the table. So, the, since there is only one preposition in bahasa and three prepositions in English language, it prefers to translate it directly. And second was about teaching techniques. When the teacher use basic teaching or this not using the suitable teaching approach by not considering the pupil's learning style, pupil's learning preference or learning needs, the teaching and learning session become boring and uninteresting or not suitable for the group of the pupils. And this leads to the discouragement of the learning motivation for the pupils in the class. And based on the problem, I came up with the intervention that brings out the element of games, quizzes, and practices in the intervention. Let's look at the next slide. There are two purposes of this study. First, to enhance grammar acquisition in terms of preposition of place among year 1 pupils in SK Lubuk Krabi. Second, to investigate the effectiveness of the intervention towards year 1 pupils. Okay. Before we go further, let's look at the research objective and the research question. The objective of this research was to improve year 1 use of preposition of place by using phrasal. And the main question to be pointed out throughout this process of intervention was how does the use of phrasal help to improve pupils' year 1 on the preposition of place. Now let's look at the significance of my research. First, to help pupils to understand, to recognize, and to remember each preposition of place correctly. And the second, to inspire language teachers to integrate games and online quiz in teaching grammar or any subjects in the classroom. Now let's look at the related past research. First, about how the language 1 influence acquisition of language 2. According to Lloyd in 2017, he mentioned that using preposition might be challenging for Malay ESL pupils since there is only one preposition D used to indicate a place in our mother tongue. And move on to the second past research, which is colorful materials. Study Corgi in 2020 suggested teachers to use color coding materials to make the grammar learning become more interesting, become more effective while making the student more engaged. And the third theory was about games and quizzes by Shafika and Melo in 2019, where they agreed that language games help to arouse pupils' learners' interest and fluency and motivation in learning any subjects, especially in language. And the last one, practices, where teachers are suggested by Greenwood in 2018. He mentioned that when teachers want students to develop new skills, we have to bear in mind that we have to include the opportunity for them to learn. And Gelfo said in 2018, it is important for us, the teachers or teachers trainees, to realize that learning and teaching new skills take time and need a lot of practice. So this is the research design. Action research was the design chosen for this study. We have instructional design, we have the implementation evaluation phase, and we have the reflection phase. And all these items and faces in this design was proposed by chemist and McTaggart in 1988, which is same applied in this study. Now let's look at the population and sample for this study. This study was conducted among year 1 pupils in SK Lubuk Kelubi, Hulu Langat, Selangor, and 3 from the 45 pupils were chosen to be the participant of this study. And based on the interview with English teacher, I am informed that these pupils have the great participation and interest in learning in class. And based on the transition test, preliminary test, I am convinced that these pupils have the potential in learning the language and acquire grammar skill better at the end of the study. Now let's look at the instrument used for data collection. First, I use the human analysis, which consists of pre and post intervention test. Okay, I will show you the example later. And for the observation, I prepared a checklist to evaluate pupils' behavior and responses in a natural way, including their non-verbal expression, for example, body gesture, facial expression, and eye contact. And last one is interview, where I conducted a semi-structured interview with 4 questions based on the themes selected. Okay, these are the document the instrument used. First, the human analysis, where the first worksheet requires people to draw the objects in the correct position. The second worksheet was to ask pupils to fill in the blank based on the figure given. And the interview conducted, we have 4 questions where it related to the 3 things in the study. First, comprehension. Second, confidence, and third, enjoy. And all the questions are related to the things I will show you later. And last one is observation. How I evaluate the pupils by looking at, are they able to answer correctly? Are they able to differentiate each preposition? Are they eager to answer by themselves? Are they waiting for teachers' help in answering? And are they enjoy during the teaching and learning session? Okay. So this is the intervention built for this study, which is PRESA, stand for preposition pizza, where it comes with PRESA box, flashcards, crop pictures on balls, non-set pizza card, and quizzes. And okay, this study analyzes 3 theories, which are cognitivism theory, experiential learning theory, and multiple intelligence theory. For the research procedure, I started with pre-intervention test with worksheet A and worksheet B, just like I mentioned just now. And I moved to introduction stage. Next, I moved to presentation, where I use the flashcards for the pupils with this some sentences and illustration on the flashcards. Next, we have the practice stage, where we provide the pupils with pizza box, pizza cards, balls, and quizzes. Lastly, we have the post-intervention test. Next is data collection procedure. For the first one, we have preliminary test, as I mentioned just now, and we continue with pre-intervention test, as you can see. That we have pizza box and quizzes B and C. Next week, throughout the process, I conduct an observation. And last one, after the practice stage, I give them the post-intervention test to evaluate how far they have understand the topic. And last one, I conducted an interview at the end of the session. And these are data analysis procedure for this study. I use triangulation for this study because the various methods applied in the study can enhance the validity and credibility of the finding of the study. For example, you can see from the figure, the finding from document analysis and interview and observation finally supported each other's finding to finally come out with a valid, 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 valid conclusion. Thank you. Valid conclusion at the end of the study. These are the data finding for the document analysis. As you can see, all the participants 1, 2, and 3 have shown impressive improvement on their pre-test and post-intervention test, as actually they are expected to obtain 10 marks at least in the post-test. However, they show the improvement and they managed to surpass the minimum requirement for the study. And this improvement was linked to the research objective, which was to improve year 1 use on the preposition of place. These are the observation conducted throughout the process, where it can summarize that participants show improvement in their performance and positive behavior after the implementation of result. And in addition, they showed high enthusiasm and learning motivation during the intervention process and during after answering the post-test. Okay. So as I can summarize, they show the improvement in the performance, enthusiasm, and positive behavior, which is related to the research objective. These are the interview question for the interviews, where I have both the two key points for the things. For example, are they able to answer a question? It refers to comprehension. Are they able to recognize and remember? It refers to comprehension. Are they able to answer questions independently without waiting for teacher's assistance? It refers to confidence. And are they enjoying the learning process? They refer to the enjoyment. These are the discussion for interview. So what I can summarize as is participants were able to comprehend the topic better, which is answered the research question on how does the use of phrasal helps people to understand and improve their knowledge on the preposition of place. This is because of the questions from pizza, cards, and quizzes help them to practice to recognize and remember each preposition correctly. And participants encourage themselves to answer the question without waiting for teachers' clues and helps after practice answering the question. And participants agreed that with the use of concrete materials, colorful pictures, illustrations, games, and online quiz, make the process of learning grammar become easy, understandable, and interesting. So the conclusion for this study was, first, the research was successful to improve year 1 use of the preposition of this in terms of comprehension, confidence, and enjoyment. To recommend this study, for the recommendation for this study, I propose to integrate the element of songs, rhymes, and poetry, because it makes the teaching and learning session become more joyful and interesting, and it increases people's interest and understanding of the grammar acquisition. The key is the repetition, where it offers practice-specific grammatical structure to teach grammar and vocabulary. Excited explosion. Next is the implications. First was to inspire teachers and teacher trainees to utilize the use of game and quizzes in teaching language and grammar in the classroom. Second, to increase people's understanding, boost enjoyment, and offer meaningful and joyful learning experience. Thank you. That's all from me.
Congratulations and thank you for your presentation. The event will now continue with a Q&A session. Please welcome Mr. Azman and Dr. Nuzilana to ask any questions to the presenter.
Where? Yeah. First, the cognitive theory. It relates people's prior knowledge and the new knowledge, where it helps people to understand how the sentence structure is built. For example, we have learned about the adjective, we have learned about article, we have learned about vocabulary. So when we when we give them new knowledge about position, it helps them to understand and relate how the sentence can be managed and structured. For example, we start with article, then we put a vocabulary. For example, a ball is under the table. So we have taught them about the article, about the article, about the vocabulary, and the vocabulary at the end of the sentence. So in the middle of sentence, where we put the preposition of this, and it helps people to see how the sentence can be structured. For the second theory, why I choose the ELT theory by David Cole, because it it apply learning by theory, learning by playing, or learning by play, or learning by doing. As we can see, the plays are the concrete materials, and it offers how the sensory touch helps to improve pupils' memory and attention span, more long-lasting and effective. The third one is the multiple intelligence. I come up with three intelligence. First, the visual spectrum. We can see how colorful and interesting the materials. Second, integrate the the intelligence of verbal linguistic. Okay, verbal linguistic in these materials. And third one is the intrapersonal intelligence, where you will have the time and chance to learn and explore the materials by themselves, to reflect and to try the materials by themselves in study. Uh, yeah. Interview question. Can you say here? The first question, I actually I use I come up with the questions by looking at the themes applied in the study. First, the themes was first comprehension. We need to know how the intervention helps them to understand, helps them to able to remember or able to recognize. So this is why I came up with these questions to evaluate how does the intervention helps them. Oh no, wait. No, I didn't. But after consulting with my lecturer. Oh, oh. So next topic. So time if I use the theories should be implemented in the materials and the question as well. And thank you for the solution. Yes.
Okay, Nadia. Yeah, and then for this normal session for you to do so we are conversing we have seen when you refer to your senior's work, most of them are not follow the proper considered structures. Okay, I think that's a metaphor for that. Okay, so I'll cover the content. Using PC to improve your one people difficulty on revolution of place. Yes. What is that revolution of place here?
In, on, and under.
In, on, under.
Yes. I only select three. Basic.
Okay. So, see, yeah. So just read that. In, under, on.
Oh, okay. I forgot to mention
So we
you.
have a on.
Okay.
So yeah. So,
Forgot to mention.
so and then the famous one is the famous ones are at, on, in. At the under, kan?
Okay.
So no, you won't be able to improve. So because we have a lot, so very confusing. Tengok apa behind, in front of, next to. So one of the reasons is, I mean, of course, for you, nothing. So you want just like you have experience in handling proper research, policy systematic, nonsense things. So, sir, okay, right now we want to ensure that our intervention will be able to program high quality properly. What about sir? The scope is on the other part something because of or ABC. That's your scope. I mean, you try to narrow the scope here. But the on. So the famous one add on in. But then you can put under. But then when you get this from add on in under on, so your problem is here one supposed to. Okay. So what is your intervention here? So your intervention is what is your intervention here?
Pizza.
Yeah, what is pizza here?
The paying box.
Okay.
Should I show you the example?
And yes, okay. So yeah,
Okay, then
Playing for.
they are playing board
Game.
with the
Or
board
game.
games. Yeah.
Okay, so for online or physical one?
I come up with two materials, which is the concrete and the online platform.
Okay. Yep. So that's what I did to because it suits your computer era now. Okay, so normally for this normally you don't put it once you for or for example like for the piece of identity your fund, your one. So normally we stress on for it.
Oh,
Yes, on I mean really good one. And then sorry, so and then a couple of maybe okay, let's take for example, can you go to research objective or research question? In for me, because you are majorly in English, so it's uh, so improve your one use of provision of this. Improve your one year one to have use of provision of this of by using VP. So it's a question how does the use of VP have improved year one use of provision of this? This is a suitable phrase I think for sentence here. How does the use of VP have improved year one use of provision of this? Maybe you can consider.
Okay.
Consider
sorry for the typo.
Yeah. Okay, and then we did discuss population and sample to equal to population sample. Then maybe the other. Okay, so this is obvious. So we don't use the term population sample for AR. Consider, so kita guna pasif saja.
Oh.
I mean, it's just yes. Okay, so sekarang balik lagi apa the last one. Okay, so we did share just now recommendation. Okay, so recommendation we have two recommendation here. Recommendation based on your study and recommendation for further research. So some research they put study for further research. Recommendation based on the study. Based on the study. Okay, so based on your study, okay, what do you have in your intervention just now? Apa yang ada di intervention tadi? What are characteristic of your intervention?
Concrete games.
What?
Concrete games.
Non-concrete game. Okay. No, I mean concrete game. So which one is it? Make the team learning session become more joyful. No, so recommendation is based on your intervention. Stage 1, stage 1, 2, research question. So teacher should
include concrete games.
Concrete game. Okay, online. Okay, for me, it's everybody. This is for study. Okay, then put there.
Oh, okay.
Siapa lagi characteristic of your intervention?
Pieces.
I don't think so. Based on your intervention there, apa yang output? Okay.
Sensory touch games. It's all about sensory touch games.
Okay, you have theory on that. Okay, so interactive game. So it's how they want to. I mean, it depends based on you. So some students they focus on song, so they focus on this one. So the next time you're going to teach grammar, so teacher could try or should try. Okay, songs, elements. Yeah, example. So get yang sebelah tu kita sini. Okay, it means you'll be interested in study of grammar position. Apa ni? I mean, kita baca tentang juga. Maksudnya apa berdasarkan daripada tajak kita tadi, intervention kita terus and a study of their position. It's normal. Teacher they practice tak masuk juga. You teach practice specific grammar structure to change grammar and vocabulary. Awak tanya vocabulary tadi, awak ajar vocabulary 3 kali kan?
I think it's suggestion for teachers to make it very.
Yeah. So we have two here. Okay. So recommendation based on your study. The other one. Okay. So this is only a what do you call small case study. For example, using table, 3 students at a rural area. So this is actually for further research. Okay. Yeah. So that's why we have so recommendation. So you should specify. So but basically recommendation is based on the study. cek kepada kawan saya, dia cakap saya ni kan, dia kata gunakan animal, benda fizikal, fizikal, alright, so ingat, apa belajar, repetition saja, based on repetition, kita kena adakan repetition practice, untuk belajar, revision, jangan masuk dua kali, atau sampai dua kali. So, important language pattern develop, tak masuk.
I have misunderstanding of the
So,
recommendation.
so we have couple of so they have small scale study. So here, to make it more valid, so I have couple of sessions. So maybe we just spend time. So we can have couple more loops with that question. So by that, done. So you can have two or recommendation based study. Either recommend or recommendation over the research. But then normally we go for recommendation based study. Yes, very much recommendation coming for the research. But then something, you need to clarify that. Okay, so recommendation, implication, so implication. So like you mentioned to you have cognitive story. Don't put everything on what you make there. So I would like to have element of fun. Okay, so what does happen? Kind of activity. Okay, pronunciation already poor. So body procedure. Okay, see what right now. So that's the good work. So mention body that not in only. Okay, that's all. Yeah, it's from forest. Okay, I think that's all.
Thank you.
Thank you, panelists. Now let's welcome our third presenter, Noor Ainmardia Bitul Karnan from Telso 3 to present her presentation. Please welcome.
Thank you, Amira. Okay, Assalamualaikum and a very good evening. I speak to my fellow friends and the parents for today. My name is Noor Ainmardia Bitul Karnan, and today I'm going to present my thesis, which is entitled Using ACs to Improve the Use of Common Nouns Among Year 3 Pupils. Okay, in the background of study, I have three major categories, which is the CEFR aligned curriculum, the pupils problem, and the last one is the teaching and learning materials. Okay, for the CFR aligned curriculum, we are all informed now that CFR aligned curriculum is the most major research system leveraged by the employee. Okay, check the pupils' proficiency in English language, and the pupils need to achieve A1 CFR level by the end of year 3. But okay, one major problem occurs, which prevented them from reaching this level because they are lacking of vocabulary. Okay, so that is the pupils' problem. So how do I overcome this? Is through creating teaching and learning materials, which is a digital storybook. Okay, that incorporate technological elements in it. Okay, so the statement of the problem, I have two statements of the problem over here. The first one is that the pupils have low vocabulary acquisition. Okay, this is observed during the second practicum session. Okay, we have online learning, and every time I ask them if they know this word, okay, for example, I ask them, do you know what cloud means? Okay, they show confusion, and some of them tended to mute their mic, and some just left the meeting just like that. So this somehow complicated the teaching and learning process. Okay, number two is that the pupils were not interested in reading English materials. Okay, there are two reasons for this. Number one is that the pupils said that English materials is very hard for them to comprehend. Why? Because they have low vocabulary acquisition. Okay, number two, because they said that if they read the text wrongly or they mispronounce the words, okay, their friends will judge them. So they ended up being shy and not have the motivation in learning English. Okay, the research objective, I have two research objectives over here. Number one is to determine how ACs helps to improve the use of common nouns among year 3 pupils in SK Bukit Barak. And number two, to increase pupils' engagement in reading using a digital storybook. Okay, the research questions. Okay, I have two research questions that need to be answered throughout this research. Number one is that how does ACES help to improve the use of common nouns among year 3 pupils of National Primary School in Bukit Mara? Can a digital storybook increase pupils' engagement in reading? Okay, so this research is significant to the pupils and the teachers because the first one, this research will help the pupils to master the use of nouns, especially in language learning. Number two is because this research will help to increase the mastery of English by using technological elements in the teaching and learning process. Because as we all know, we are now in the 21st learning century, right? So as teachers, we have to incorporate technological elements in our teaching and learning process. Okay, number two, it helps the teachers to assist pupils' achievement in improving the use of nouns. And it is also significant for teachers because it will act as a platform to foster a fun learning environment through the use of technological elements. Okay, for related past researches, I have 4 related past researches as to ensure that my research is compatible and appropriate for the future research. Okay, number one is a survey conducted by Nur Hani Misbah, Maslawati Muhammad, Melo Muhammad Yunus, and Azizah Yaakob. Okay, so they have employed a research to identify the factors contributing to students' difficulties in English language learning in 2017. So their participants is 116 year 6 students from 7 sekolah kebangsaan schools in Malaysia. So based on this finding, I have noticed that the biggest factor that contributes to the pupils' difficulties in learning English is the limited vocabulary. Okay, we have to bear in mind over here that limited vocabulary appears to be the biggest factor, not the motivation, not the interest. So this research is employed to make sure that it can overcome the lack of vocabulary in the pupils by supporting this research difficulties in learning English language by the pupils. Okay, number two, I have included one technique that is related to past research, which is color coding. Okay, this research is conducted by Sandi Arianto Ashik, Dimas Muhammad Rizki Nurdiansyah, and Asatiana Parmawati in 2019, which to see the effectiveness of using color coding to improve students' English vocabulary in 2019. So the participants were 20 students of one primary school in Cimahi in Indonesia. And the findings found out that the participants who were taught using color coding had greater vocabulary abilities than those who were not. Okay, this study had distributed the participants into 2 groups. One group uses color coding in their vocabulary acquisition, and another one doesn't have color coding. So the difference is that the participants who use color coding had greater vocabulary abilities compared to the one group that doesn't have color coding in their vocabulary acquisition learning. Okay, number 3, a research conducted by May Ali Abdul Amir. Okay, it uses a digital storybook to improve vocabulary learning European units in 2016. Okay, this is one of the reasons why I created digital storybook. Okay, because the participants use in this research is 48-year-old primary students in one private primary school. So the age of this research and my research is just related to each other because mine is 9-year-old. Okay, so the result indicated that digital stories promoted vocabulary learning and development, which eventually helped young learners in experimental groups improve their overall language skills. This research also have distributed their participants into 2 groups. One uses digital storybook and another one doesn't. Okay, last but not least, the related past research conducted by Samia Nasir Al-Hinai, which it focuses on the investigation of the children's responses to illustration. Because my digital storybook uses colorful illustration. Okay, so the question is that what is the importance and impact of illustration in children's books? It uses 6 9-year-old children as the participants, and the findings of this research paper showed that most children prefer illustrated books, which increase their motivation in reading. Because pupils at an early age, okay, they have more they are more interested when we use bright colors in our materials compared to just having black and white materials in the classroom. Okay, the research design chosen is the chemist and colors. Okay, it has 2 cycles, which comprises of 4 systematic steps in each cycle. Starts from planning, action, observe, and reflect, and then we just revise the plan. And if there's improvement needed, we will improve our intervention, and then plan, and then do the action, observe, and then reflect again. Okay, I'm sorry for this mistake. It should be participants, not respondent. Okay, so the participants, it's 3 pupils from year 3 Pestari in SK Bukit Barak, and it consisted of 1 girl and 2 boys. Okay, so my intervention is a digital storybook named A6. So what is A6? A6 is defined as A1 stories for young students. So what does it mean by A1 over here? A1 means I have integrated A1 CFR vocabularies into my digital storybook. Why A1 CFR vocabularies? Okay, we have to bear in mind that my participants is 3 9-year-old kids. So I have to use A1 CFR for this in order to make sure that the words are very suitable for them to learn. Okay, because they are from remedial pupils and they only at the beginning stage of learning English at primary schools. Okay, so as you can see over here, I have a few pages in the storybook. The first one is the interactive page, okay, where it has pop-up words and color coding. Okay, the color coding I have used 2 colors for nouns so that the pupils can distinguish between nouns and other word categories. Okay, and then I use colorful illustrations and also pictures that related to their previous knowledge so that they somehow can connect and bring their outside book into the classroom. Okay, and another one is that in the storybook, I use audio. If you can, I'm not sure. Okay, it has audio as a storyteller, okay, so that when the pupils turn the page, the storyteller will read the story first to them. Okay, this is to improve their pronunciation in reading as well as motivating them in reading because they said earlier, right, that they have no interest in reading because they are afraid of mispronouncing the words. Okay, next is the research procedure. I started my research by reflecting my past teaching experience. Then I identified issues and concerns based on what I have taught before. And then I determined the research focus, research objective, and research questions. And then I determined the research design and create intervention. After I have created intervention, I started to provide an action plan for me to implement the intervention in school later. Okay, after that, I informed the school's administrator and mentor using the permission letter provided by our IPC, and then conduct the preliminary investigations. So I have 3 preliminary investigations in order for me to choose the participants. Number 1 is the classroom-based assessment. I only selected the pupils that have band 3, that achieve band 3 because it is to improve their performance in reading and as well as the common nouns. And then after selecting those in band 3, they are required to do a diagnostic test. A diagnostic test where they will have to answer questions based on the pictures. Okay, it is very simple because they have to look at 14 pictures and then name the pictures that they see. For example, tree, rock. So all of the pictures are now selected based on the A1 CFR list. Okay, and then I did an interview with the English teacher after I have selected 3 participants that I want to use in my research intervention to check their performance in the classroom. Okay, next one, I conduct the intervention in 1 cycle of 2 sessions, which consists of 1 pupil per day. Okay, the cycle started off with preliminary tests, where they will look at 3 pictures extracted from the digital storybook, and they will write the nouns that they know based on the pictures. And then they will have to use the axis from page 1 to page 10. Then they have to do an exercise where they have to drag and drop the pictures to the correct noun. After that, for the second session, they will use the axis again from page 10 to 21 and then do the exercise And last but not least, they have to fill in the feedback form. And during the intervention, I will start to observe them to see their responses and their behaviors. And last but not least, I will conduct an interview. Okay, after all of that are done, I will analyze the data collected using thematic analysis. And then last but not least, I will determine the finding. Okay, for data collection and data analysis procedure, I have used 3 data collection as you can see over here. The first one is document analysis, second one is observation, and the third one is interview. So for document analysis, I have used pre and post intervention worksheet. I recognize the participants' use of nouns based on the number of correct nouns written by the pupils when they look at the pictures extracted from the digital storybook. Okay, for the feedback form, I will collect their responses from the feedback form, and then I just classify it into the 4 things that I want to observe. Okay, next is observation. I have to observe them during the intervention, and then I fill in the observation checklist and make remarks based on each of the theme that I have provided in the observation checklist. For example, their body posture, their interest, enjoyment, and their interaction with the storybook. Okay, so in the observation checklist, I have 5 themes. Last but not least is the interview. I have conducted a semi-structured interview. After I have conducted the interview, I transcribe the audio recordings and I translate the interviews because the interview was conducted fully in Malay language. Okay, I conducted in Malay language because the pupils doesn't have that much knowledge of amount of vocabulary. So I guess it's better to use Malay language because it is easier for them to connect and interact with us and give their response towards what they have used during the intervention. Okay, in the interview, I have taken out 4 themes from their responses to make sure that my method is sync with each other, and I can use them to triangulate the data because the triangulation method helps the researcher to make sure that every data is valid and credible to be used in the research and is somehow valid to answer my research problems and my research questions. So, my people stated that the triangulation method is a type of practice that involves various types of data resources that help to provide the validity and credibility of the research findings. Okay, so next one is the data findings. So this is the data findings in the preliminary and post worksheet. Okay, as you can see here, Tina, Isaac, and Azim, they are used as pseudonyms. Okay, so research participant 1, during the preliminary worksheet, she was only able to write 4 nouns. Okay, actually she wrote 7 nouns, but the other 3 was written in Malay language, so it cannot be accepted in the preliminary worksheet. And then as you can see here, after she had used the intervention, her worksheet, she was able to write 16 nouns. Okay, for Isaac, for preliminary worksheet, she was only able to write 2 nouns, and then for post worksheet, he was able to write 14 nouns. And last but not least is Azim. Okay, Azim is the most weakest pupil in my research participant. Okay, because in the earliest preliminary worksheet, he wrote 10 nouns, but only 1 in English. And then, so after the intervention, he stated that it is very fun to learn that way, and he was able to write 30 nouns during the post worksheet. Okay, next one for table 1 is the themes identified in the feedback form. Okay, next one is table 2, themes analyzed in the observation checklist, and table 3, themes analyzed in the interview. So what I can conclude over here is that the pupils have provided positive responses that is proven that their use of nouns is increased and improved through the use of intervention, and they are more motivated in reading. Next. Okay, so the discussion will answer 2 research questions. The first one, how does ACES help to improve the use of common nouns among Year 3 pupils of National Primary School in Bukit Mara? Okay, So the answer is that the pupils' positive improvement in their worksheets reflect their improvement on the use of nouns using digital storybook. It is because it has integrative interactive elements that help to improve the use of common nouns among the participants. So these are the three major interactive elements that the pupils often mention in the interview. They said the color coding helped them so much because they can distinguish between nouns and other word categories. Okay, number two is the pop-up words with colorful illustrations. And number three is it has fun and interactive games. Number for research question number two, can a digital storybook increase people's engagement in reading? It is proven that a digital storybook increase the pupils' engagement in reading because it has colorful illustrations and it has audio. These two also was included in the interview. Okay, so for conclusion, based on the findings, the researcher proved that the intervention ACs answered the research questions. The participants were able to improve their use of nouns using ACs. The integration of interactive techniques in the teaching of nouns is very essential to ensure that the effectiveness of teaching and learning process. And last but not least is positive engagement in reading was discovered in the pupils through the use of ACs. Okay, last but not least is that the suggestions for future research. The first one is that the AC's digital storybook could be expanded for the teaching of another topic in English because in a storybook we have grammar, we have verb, and we have preposition. So it can be it can be expanded to teach other topic in English because digital storybook is somehow very fun for the pupils to use. Okay, number two, ACs could be upgraded from a typical digital storybook to an augmented reality storybook to provide readers motivation, engagement, and enjoyment. This is because AR, okay, augmented reality, which is AR, is a 3D elements in technology. So somehow this will help to improve and increase their engagement in reading because people will be very attracted to see that the image from the storybook pop up. Okay, and last but not least, it is recommended for this research to be conducted in 2 cycles to validate the results and to see more improvements in the participants. Okay, this is because if you notice, my research is only conducted in 1 cycle because when I wanted to um, do the intervention for the second cycle, the school was flooded due to heavy rain. So I cannot go to the school, and the school administrators suggest me to not go to the school because it is very dangerous. And the situation of the school is also quite chaotic because the teachers still have to proceed in teaching, even though the situation of the school is like that. And I guess that's all from me. Thank you.
Congratulations and thank you for your presentation. This event will now continue with a question and answer session. Please welcome Sir Azman and Dr. Juliana to ask any questions to the presenter.
Yes.
Okay.
As your you mentioned about yes. Yeah, let's go ahead. I have integrated. Okay. I have used color coding specifically for the improvement of common nouns. Number two, I use colorful illustrations. This one is to increase their motivation in reading. Number three is the use of pop-up words. Okay, the pop-up words is placed uh, beside the pictures. So that after when, okay, for example, the pupils don't know the name of this object. So they just have to click and the pop-up words will appear so that they can learn the nouns of the object that they don't know. So that one is to improve the use of nouns. Okay, number four is the use of audio in the storybook. It has storyteller because during my second practicum, when I asked the pupils why they refuse to read the text, okay, they said that they don't want to read the That's because they are afraid of mispronouncing the words. So I thought, why not we include storyteller in the storybook so that they have a guidance on how to read the text, on how to read the words. And last but not least, I guess it's just for nouns and then another two for reading. Thank you so much. Okay. Presentation. Okay, team motivated to reach. Okay, you should have text, yes, okay. That's the case. You can continue. Okay. Something in or starting or interactive. At all. Oh, is it this one? The notification? Okay. So when we want to create a multimedia presentation, we have to ensure that we have 5 seconds. Three stories. Is it different? Yes. You have to multiple. Yeah. And precious. So, okay, this is my suggestion. Put one stories. Oh, okay. What is it? Multiple presentation. Okay. Put stories. Yes. Images. Study for the layers. Okay. Let's see it about the what initial. Take all the equipment. Have measure. Close. Okay. Lalu tak pasal. That one I need to put under academic one. How statement should understand what is for the result for the sorry, so we get into the education. What is the result of the this one for now? The thought is positive. What what do you understand about semantic analysis is when we take out few things that we want to observe in our data collection method in order for us to make sure that this theme is related to our research problems so that it answers our research problem based on the themes that we have selected. For example, like I want to make sure I want to investigate whether my digital storybook are able to increase their motivation. So the things that I have selected is enjoyment and interest. What is okay. You said I stated that for the teaching of another topic, they focus on what kind of topic. What kind of topic. Alright. Okay. You said that is recommended for this research. Okay, research, what kind of research? Is it case study? Is it experimental research? What major cycle? You know, research. What must what focus on? What investigations and Thank you so much, Dr.
Okay, probably. Yeah, for me, yes, when it comes to class one suggestion, so we have 2 years suggestion for based on your study, suggestion coming for further research, but it's okay. Okay, so your intervention is digital reading, digital reading, text. Content here. So of course, when it comes to content there, use digital reading to help students to improve repetition, pronunciation, whatever. So more than the same thing. So what is your scope of focus here? So what do you find now here?
Sorry?
What do you find now? Common now?
Common nouns. Common nouns are
I mean, based on your scope here.
common nouns here is themes because there are still because I have selected the A1C the words in the digital storybook from the A1C.
Okay, so what about the question there? What could be the question? I mean, you're in that quotes and you can give an example of your question in your quote.
Of the questions in an interview.
Yeah.
Okay. One of the questions in my interview for post-test because I want to check the understanding.
So, I mean, what we by now here, so let's something that you question here. Water, stop, and okay, so what do you see at the garden?
So they have to
Now,
now the sun, cloud, the animals, things, object. Touch no people included.
okay, so you're talking about things here. So like provision now. So my scope is only I mean my scope is only my students, sir. One students only, student. Okay. So you have one example we have the scope here. So so we talk about now that where do you get this from? Now
The escape.
escaping. So many words we have here. Your escape.
There's one cloud, butterfly. There are a lot of nouns in the
Yes, okay. So we can define what you define now here. You know, but then for me, we spend a lot of times on digital, preparing digital, reading material. Okay, so instead of focusing, so preposition, chronic. Okay. So I'm not sure. So what I say here, a proposition here, what do you do for reading comprehension? Example is order. Okay, people are talking about reading. Digital here, digital. Yeah, instead of just divided things here, but now here, so this could be for maybe what you call interactive games. I'm not sure it's one difference here. So I'm trying to kind of define the topic. Let's go here, what is down here. Let's focus on now. Yeah, because for me when it comes to different so it's better to go for it. What can you see? In the picture, I can see slide, seesaw. Okay, how many? What is the color of this picture? Something like that. So it's gonna be more fun because if you mention the treatment of color and the text. Okay, so with color, whatever, paper, graphic, science, etc. Yep. Okay, picture, and text. That's I get it. Okay. Okay. I'm not sure about related past research. So I'm not sure if it's method in so normally answer sebenarnya want to buat so dan aku fokus detail. Okay.
How here digital curriculum that gives the biggest influence on the pupils' improvement of nouns. Because there are a lot of characteristics included, for example, the color coding, the illustration. So which of these has bigger influence?
So lebih pintu. So right now, yeah, you can, yes, the topic, then you can expand. You can expand. It does mean you never spoke just yes. No. Okay, I mean, because so my school is going to indicate that school talk about other things, something like that. Yeah. So don't talk about provisions that focusing on comprehension. Okay. Okay, okay, discussion, I'm not sure. Okay, so saya topik answer dalam department ni, ya. Let me go to discussion. Okay, normally for AI, normally what you use for discussion? Discussion or reflection? Reflection. Okay, so because yeah, we have been to couple of so right now, so reflection or discussion here. So based on your study here, and then you refer to theory by the two. So suggestion to me, based on your study, sir, next time, sir, sorry, sir, when it comes to reading comprehension or teaching now, so we should include the element of
multimedia presentation.
oh yeah, what could you do by that? Yeah,
Multimedia, the Mayer's theory.
Normally that's what we how do you know this word? So this word class. So it might not be covered then later on discussion competition. Can we trust me? Of course, you can trust me by then. Of course, this is to make it more valuable. So maybe the extension could be or the participant could be more done. Yeah, better. So for admission, so for session we have two. Okay, but I point press this based on the study. This one is okay. Next, okay. This is only a small case study. Okay, small limited time. Limited time. Okay, after that. So here, put double suggestion for project research. Okay, something like that. But then, because this one is you are doing with your student, and then you like to check if you not. So you are focusing to somebody else. Yeah. So for piece of paper, but then for normal research, then yeah, you would like to go for section for further research. Okay, so I mean, what I say suggestion is you would like to propose the element of digital learning in each level, like for friends, okay, online learning, for example, okay, physical games, okay, song, yeah.
So I need to be more specific.
Normally, based on the study, okay, like some of my friends, so sir, go for physical games, okay, when you like to teach paper, you take focus on now. So sir, if so we when we teach now, if we focus on now, then we should do treatment of graphic, whatever, okay, color, media, whatever. Okay, I think that's what I think. Yeah,
Thank you, sir. such as that teachers can adapt into the classroom. Okay, there are two statement of problems which I have integrated in the study. The first one is the poor grammar knowledge. The second one is the lack use of technology and interactive learning in the classroom. So during my practicum phase 2, what I've discovered is that my students have a very poor grammar knowledge. This is due to the fact that they were very affected due to the COVID-19 outbreak, which despite being the third year of the primary schooling, they don't have the exposure towards the physical learning in the classroom. The second one is the lack use of technology and interactive learning in the classroom. The students lack exposure towards a dynamic and engaging learning environment that use fascinating teaching resources to encourage and improve English learning. The purpose of this study is to use fairy tales Go to improve the use of cognitive conjunctions among year 3 pupils. The second one is to assist year 3 Pinta pupils in producing grammatical sentences with appropriate and correct use of coordinating conjunctions and but. Okay, so my research objective is only one, which is to improve the use of coordinating conjunctions and but of year 3 Pinta pupils using fairy tales Go. My research question is, how does fairy tales Go improve the use of conjunctions and but usage of year 3 Pinta pupils? The significance of this research is, of course, to improve the use of coordinating conjunctions and but of year 3 Pinta pupils using fairy tales Go. There are two related past researches which have become the backbone towards the development of my study. The first one is perspectives on using interactive site in ESL classroom among primary school English language teachers in Pasir Gudang. According to the author, 70% of the teachers who participated in the survey agreed to the fact of how important it is to integrate the use of interactive site in the classroom. This has piqued my interest as a researcher to develop one innovation or one intervention to which derives from interactive slides to help my pupils in understanding coordinating conjunctions more. So the second one is digital awareness among ESL students by Ihab Palak in the year 2020. So this researcher has actually created a computer-mediated communication to help his ESL learners in improving their communicating strategy. So according to the author, what I believe is that he has suggested that the use of digital learning is very important towards improving the performance of the ESL learners. So my research design is action research by Chemist and McTaggart. It has been conducted in 2 cycles, which is the 2 cycles derived from planning, acting, observing, reflecting. So my research participants is actually so my research participants have been chosen through a diagnostic test conducted in the class 3 Pinta. So 3 female pupils from the class 3 Pinta of Sekolah Kebangsaan Bukit Marak, Bachok, Kelantan has been chosen. The first participant is Yusra, second participant Naila, and third participant is Fahira. So these 3 were under the pseudonym. So these participants was chosen through a diagnostic test whereby they have obtained the lowest mark for their diagnostic test. Okay, so my intervention consists of 3 important segments. So as you can see, the first segment, we have the introduction part, which is the students will get to know the characters. So in this fairy tales Go, I have integrated the story Cinderella, and they will get to know the character Cinderella first. And then they will be proceeding to the second segment, which is the reading of the story. So in the reading of the story, the students were exposed to the understanding of coordinating conjunctions, whereby they will be exposed to different types of puzzles, and in the puzzle, they will be exposed and taught about how the different sentences can be combined with the conjunctions and but. So the third segment is as you can see here, is the game quizzes, which derives of 3
important level, easy, medium, and hard, to really assess students' understanding of the correct use of coordinating conjunctions and but, which actually enhance their critical thinking about what they have learned earlier in the story section. Okay, so my research procedure began from choosing the topic, choosing design, submit proposal to the lecturer, prepare questions, and this is when my supervisor checked and approved, and then prepared the letter to collect data and analyze data. So my data collections method has three, which is document analysis, observation, and interview. So for the document analysis, I have pre and post intervention test, students feedback form, and photographs. For the observation, I have students behavioral protocol, which is under the students behavioral protocol, and the interview is being conducted of semi-structured interview. So my data collection procedures has a very four important section, which is the first section is the pre-intervention test, whereby I would give the participants, research participants, the pre-intervention test, and then I will measure their overall understanding of the coordinating conjunctions before the implementation of the intervention. And then the implementation of the intervention, which is conducted in an hour time, 20 minutes were dedicated to the reading of the story Cinderella, and 35 minutes were then dedicated for the game section. So in the implementation of the intervention, observation was being conducted. The post-intervention test is participants were given the post-intervention test, which was the same as the pre-intervention test, to measure their overall understanding of the coordinating conjunctions and but after the implementation of the intervention. And then after the post-intervention test, I will interview and give them the students' feedback form to get their thoughts and overall opinion regarding the use of fairy tale school to improve their coordinating conjunctions. Okay, so for my data analysis procedures is being divided into three, which is for the document analysis, I'll have the post-intervention test, photographs, and students' feedback form. And for the post-intervention test, of course, I will analyze your understanding based on the marks obtained by the students. And then for the photographs is under three themes. I will explain later these themes. The students' feedback form is under 5 themes. For the observation, based on the responses that I actually observed throughout the implementation of the intervention, there are 5 themes which I would analyze, and then I would filling in observation checklists and recognizing features of the intervention instructions which I can modify towards leveling up their understanding of the coordinating conjunctions. And then for the interview, we have transcriptions of video recording, translation of the interviews, which by the video recording, I will translate back their transcription. And then for the responses, I will actually interrelate it with the themes that I wanted to analyze from the interview session. All right, so this is the data findings which I have obtained throughout my study. For the document analysis, what I can see is the post-intervention test, an increasing of marks obtained after 2 sessions held. This implied to the 3 of the participants. And then for the photographs, what I can see is the excitement, participation, and interest can be analyzed after the conduction of second session. Not that I want to say that the first session does not portray any excitement, participation, or attention, but only one research participant shows it, and another 2 only shows 1 and 2 of the themes: excitement, participation, and attention. So for the students' feedback form, we have understanding, participation, attention, and interest, which was analyzed after the conduction of the second session. In the students' feedback form, we can see the genuine response of the students towards the implementation of the intervention, which the positive responses can only be obtained after the second session. So for my observation, I did students under the students' behavior protocol, which is during the first session, almost none of the themes can be analyzed from all of the research participants. However, During the second session, all of the participants have shown the team's interest, determination, attention, participation, and positive behavior during the intervention implementation. For the interview, I've done some semi-structured interview, which is for the first and second session. All of the participants have shown all the analyzed themes such as excitement, participation, and interest during the semi-structured interview held after the intervention session. Okay, so for the findings, how does fairy tales go improve the use of conjunctions and but usage of year 3 Pinta pupils? So of course, it answers the research question, which can be seen throughout the performance of the pupils, which proven to improve in post-intervention tests as compared to the pre-intervention test. So the second one is students' overall motivation seen from their determination, interest, and participation to learn English grammar in an interactive way were enhanced after the implementation of the fairy tale scope. So in this context, the learning of grammar is actually coordinating conjunctions and but. Okay, so for the discussion, which is the reflection towards this study, is that what I can reflect is the determination among teachers. It is up for the teachers to actually improve their determination towards creating or exploring new strategies to enhance students' performance in English language. So the second one is the importance of grammar mastery, which is we can see that coordinating conjunction plays a vital role towards the students' enhancement of writing skill. Without the correct use of coordinating conjunctions, we cannot see how a structure can be built. They cannot actually master the use of compound sentences, which will decrease their mastery in the writing skill. The third one is the implementations of fun and engaging teaching tools. As we can see, the implementations of fun and engaging teaching tools has been supported by many researchers. So it is very important, as we can see the benefit here is that it can actually create a fun and engaging learning experience towards the students, and which can really motivate their overall understanding and behavior towards the learning of English language. The next one is cognitivism theory in grammar-based learning approach. What I can say is that cognitivism theory is very important towards for the teachers before actually creating any intervention or teaching tools towards the learning of the students. It is because assimilation and accommodation is very important for the students to really enhance their overall understanding towards the certain subjects that they are trying to learn. So in conclusion, fairy tales go enhance the pupils' understanding of coordinating conjunctions and but in grammar learning. Fairy tales go also motivates the pupils to become more active, collaborate with their classmates, critical thinking, and improve their self-confidence level when it comes to the learning of English grammar. For the recommendations, what I can say is that I would totally using fairy tales go concept to learn other languages of grammar learning. As for example, we can use fairy tales go to learn the concept of kata hubung in national language Bahasa Melayu. Apart from that, we can also use fairy tales go to learn punctuations using fairy tales. So despite using coordinating conjunctions in this intervention, we can also use punctuations for the learning in the fairy tales go. The third one is adding voiceover to enhance engagement. Of course, if I could actually recommend to fix the fairy tales go, I would add voiceover in the implementation of the story. So in that way, it can actually create more engaging tools towards the learning of the students. The last one is using fairy tales go in other grammar areas. Of course, like this is the same as the second one, which is we can use to learn punctuations, types of nouns, and more. So the implication is, what I can say is that I think by doing this research, it can really help teachers in seeking for a new approach of teaching grammar-based content. The second one is benefiting the integration of technology or ICT in making English easy to understand and learn for remedial students. The last one is increasing pupils' motivation towards learning English as second language. So this is those references, and that's all for me.
Thank you for your presentation. The ceremony will continue with the question and answer session. Please welcome Sir Azman bin Muhammad Noor and Dr. Nur Juliana binti Abdul Majid to ask any questions to the presenter.
It's actually the importance of why this research is being conducted. So, what I wanted from this study is to the use of recording conjunctions of my students treating that by using the evidence that actually produced. Is my all right. I thought the
You have to show the improvement.
examining their it's almost the same as observation. It's like how I examine by taking photographs of their overall behavior towards the implementation of technology. Six is actually like documented the analysis what exercise
Work. So, I'm not sure what to do. Like, what is your research question?
This question is how does the fairy tales go in functions and what among interesting peoples by using fairy tales?
So, how do you find out the answer? That's the way of finding.
Is that through the use of through
I mean, no, but students have to use that exercise.
yes the exercise in feedback form which are given for them?
So, apa tu ketiga feedback form? Adakah anda berjaya?
Um, yes. Yes.
Jadi menjawab ya.
Yes.
Kita tahu dia tak jawab itu.
Because in the students feedback form we have emojis. So in the first session, they did the emoji of the non-smiley face, the sad face. But when I asked the same question, like how does the fairy tales go? And do you enjoy the session? Do you understand the coordinating conjunctions? The first session they would answer sad emoji. The second session they would answer the smiley emoji, which is we can see the improvement of their overall responses towards the implementation of the intervention. Theory. There are three theories, which is the theory by Tajuk, humanistic theory by Ambilan, and the multiple intelligences theory by Pendidikan.
Okay, I'll go for content. Yeah. So, including the use of conjunction and but it's okay. So because you prepare, your intervention is
Fairy tales go?
Okay.
Yes, yes.
okay. Okay, online for me, okay, right? Okay. Okay, you prepare the games like okay. Then your question is only but and
And
but and.
yes.
Okay. What do you just go for and but?
This is actually based on the activity of the tree. And since when I asked when I interviewed the homeroom teacher, he said that the students are having so much trouble in actually differentiating between the use of and but because they confuse the usage of both of the functions. They often miss
Okay. Okay, I got it. Okay, so normally the response is supposed to be and or but.
yes.
Okay, but it's also we had what you call and or
Yes.
or but okay, so okay, so that's how they or whatever. So this is gonna be a design and so on. Okay, based on what trying to serve. Okay, when teacher prepare students will focus on okay, my question is
welcome the next presenter, Wainur Amin Iwan Yahya from Session 4 to present her presentation. Please welcome. Assalamualaikum and a very good evening I give to honorable panelists and also my fellow friends. So my research title is Teachers' Perception on Online Learning During COVID-19 Pandemic in Primary School in the District. So I will begin my presentation with the background of the study. So during COVID-19 pandemic, online learning became the finisher for the continuity of Malaysia's education. And to support the online learning implementation, the Ministry of Education has come up with the home-based teaching and learning manual as the guidelines for the teachers and also schools administrators when implementing online learning. However, the implementation of online learning has become challenges for teachers as there are these learning disparities may expand between the students who are equipped with technologies and those who are couldn't able to afford themselves with sufficient technology facilities and assets. Therefore, teachers face challenges in implementing successful online learning. The effectiveness of online learning is determined by a few factors such as the suitability of learning materials, the exposure of technology, and also the compatibility of gadgets. And these factors determine whether the online learning meets the teacher's expectation or not. So this study is aimed to examine the perception of teachers on online learning during the COVID-19 pandemic in primary school in Besut district. Okay, next. For the statement of problem, since the online learning was conducted, teachers face a different learning environment, and this requires them to be fully depend on technology, and also their readiness to technology is important in determining the successfulness of the online learning. And as online learning were implemented, there are advantages and disadvantages that gained by the teachers. Okay, so as for example of the advantages, online learning can help teachers to conduct lesson and update materials at times. And students also can access the materials whenever they need. As for the disadvantages, teachers and students who are lack of technology competencies and also facilities cannot receive online learning materials, and this hinders the learning process and make the students left behind in their education. Okay, as teachers face different experience in carrying out online learning, teachers may feel burdened or feel relief with the online learning implementation. Therefore, this study is aimed to evaluate the perception of online learning, to evaluate the perception of teachers on online learning during pandemic COVID-19 by taking account three aspects, which are opinions, readiness, and also the barriers to the online learning implementation. Okay, next. So the purpose of the study, this research is to study the perception of teachers on online learning implementation during COVID-19 pandemic in primary school in the district. And this study also attempts to explain the teachers' readiness for online learning and the potential barriers to the online learning implementation. Okay, next. There are three research objectives. The first one is to find out the Besut primary school teachers' opinion on online learning. The second one to examine the primary school teachers' readiness for online learning, and the third one to investigate the potential barriers to the implementation of online learning faced by the teachers in Besut. As for the research question, the first one is, what is the Besut primary school teachers' opinion on online learning? The second one, what is the primary school teachers' readiness for online learning? And the third one, what are the potential barriers to the implementation of online learning faced by the primary school teachers in Besut? Okay, this study is significant for those who are involved in Malaysian education concepts, which are teachers, school administrators, and also JPN, which is State Education Department, and also Ministry of Education. So as for the teacher, the result of this findings, the result of this research might motivate them to enhance their knowledge in online learning method, and also can encourage teachers to improve their pedagogical skill and provide useful insight of the potential barrier of the learning implementation, so they can be more aware and conscious about the barriers. And as for the school administrators, the finding of this study might help school administrators to develop effective online learning strategies as they are aware of the teachers' competencies, readiness of online learning. And then next, the finding of the result also might give awareness on what the school administrators should amend to overcome the barriers in online learning implementation. And the last one for school administration, it informed them to increase teachers' engagement in using online learning tools by providing guidance or workshop at school. Okay, as for JPN and MOE, the result of this study help them to be more aware of teacher competencies, reading readiness, teachers' competencies, readiness, and challenges in online learning. And it also helped them to prepare alternatives to avoid the challenges of online learning implementation faced by the teacher will occur. Okay, next. These are, there are a lot of past researchers that I can relate with my study, and these are some of the past researchers. A study conducted in Malaysia by Siti Nobatura and Nofarila in 2020 shows that online learning allows teachers to assign tasks to the students easier and more efficient. Not only that, the teaching and learning materials were more effective and interesting, and teachers could update teaching and learning materials from time to time effortlessly. As for the study conducted in Indonesia by Rector Fuji and Yanti Mirza 2020, teachers show a positive perception of the usefulness and ease of use of the online learning implementation during pandemic COVID-19. However, some of the respondents did not agree on the effectiveness of online learning during COVID-19 as the system was less effective. As for the study conducted in Philippines, the study by Lafada, Medium, Robledo, and Rolden in 2020, 99 of the teachers were agreed that they were ready to conduct online learning, especially in utilizing digital applications such as YouTube, Google Classroom, or Google Meet. A research in India conducted by Ramakanta and Sonali in 2020, majority of the respondents were ready for online learning in terms of financial and suitable digital devices. The respondents also showed that they were proficient in digital skills and required for online learning implementation. Another study that conducted in India by Devika Nambia 2020 shows that teachers face difficulties in adapting themselves with online learning environment as the shift from face-to-face learning to online learning happens in all sudden. And another study conducted in Indonesia by Irfan Fauzi and Iman Hermawan in 2020 shows that it is difficult for teachers to establish interaction with students during the online classes. In addition, the difficulty of getting parents' cooperation also leads to students' absence of the online learning session. Okay, next. The research design. So this study, the research design for this study is a survey which employed quantitative approach and close-ended questionnaire for the instrument. As for the population example, as mentioned in the title. The population of this research is primary school teachers in Besut Terengganu, and the samples are 100 primary school teachers from 7 selected schools in Besut Terengganu. The the randoms the sampling method used in this research is random sampling method, whereby all the population have the probability of to be included in the sample. Okay, as the instrument used for the data collection, it is the instrument used is questionnaire, which adapted from Siti Nurhaliza and Noparadila and Lapada in 2020, which requires the respondent to specify their level of agreement to the close-ended learning and close-ended item based on 5-point Likert scale, ranging from strongly agree and strongly disagree and strongly agree. And in the questionnaire, there are 4 sections. The first section, section A, consists of 6 items regarding the background information of the respondent. Section B consists of 10 items regarding primary school teachers' opinion on online learning. Section C consists of 10 items regarding primary school teachers' readiness on online learning. And the last section consists of 10 items regarding the barriers to the implementation of online learning. Okay, so for the research procedures, I started the research by preparing a research proposal, and then I had a consultation with the supervisor. And before when the instrument was approved by the supervisor, I begin my data collection. And when the data collected, I begin the data analysis, and then I start the research report writing with the data analysis. Okay, so data collection procedures. Before distributing the online questionnaire, I first seek for a permission from the school's administrator and headmaster by writing permission letters and email it to the school. And then I contact the schools to get the confirmation. And I also seek for the approval from the headmaster. After I get the confirmation and also the approval, I will send the link to the teachers, and the teachers will answer the questionnaire within a week. And after that, the data collected, and I started the data analysis. Okay, next, data analysis procedure. The obtained data was analyzed using SPSS software version 26, and the statistical analysis used is descriptive analysis, whereby the frequency and percentage were used to analyze the respondent background information. Meanwhile, the mean and standard deviation were used to analyze the opinion, readiness, and barriers to the online learning implementation. These are the data findings. As for the first research question, the mean the overall mean obtained is 3.29, and standard deviation 0.739, with the interpretation of mean score agree, which means that the primary school teachers in Besut agree with the implementation of online learning during COVID-19 pandemic. Okay, as for the second research question, the mean score obtained is 3.55, with the standard deviation 0.661, and the interpretation of the mean score is high, whereby it indicates that the primary school teachers in Besut were ready enough to implement online learning. And the last research question, the mean obtained is 3.70, and standard deviation 0.6659, with the interpretation of mean score agree, which indicates a teacher agrees with all the listed factors in the construct of barriers to the implementation of online learning, and they perceive that the most prominent barriers to the online learning is the lack of student engagement and attendance in online classes. As for the discussion, for the research question number 1, uh, it is found that teachers have a positive opinion on online learning, and this finding is similar to the research by Siti Nobazura and Nofaradila and Giovanella in 2020. And for the research question, for the first research question, it shows that teachers accept and supported the shift to online learning approach during COVID-19 pandemic. As the second question, the finding shows that teacher readiness for online learning is high, and they were ready to conduct online learning and online classes as scheduled by the school. And this finding is in line with ASLIN in 2020. Okay. However, they were moderately ready to utilize learning management system (LMS) such as Google Classroom, Edmodo, and so on. They intended for online classes, and this finding is similar to Anna Hazika in 2020. Okay, as for the last research question, the finding shows that the most prominent barriers to the online learning implementation are related to the lack of students' engagement and attendance in online learning. And the result, the prominent barriers of lack of students' engagement is similar with the study by Rasmi Tadila in 2020. Meanwhile, the lack of students' attendance in online classes in line with the study by Deepika in 2020. The finding shows that the teachers agree that students often make excuses to avoid from joining online classes, and their inconsistent enthusiasm impede the online learning implementation. As for the conclusion, the first one, the teacher's positive view on online learning indicates that it is one of the most preferred teaching methods that should be implemented during during COVID-19 pandemic. The second one, teachers had a profound readiness for online learning, as most of them were ready in terms of following timetables, and they were prepared with ICT skills. And the last one, teachers agree that all the factors listed in the barriers to the online learning implementation, and they perceive that lack of student engagement and attendance in online classes as the biggest barriers. As for the recommendations for the further research, further research could use a larger samples that includes all the primary school teachers in Terengganu to obtain the better picture of teachers' opinion, readiness, and barriers to the online learning implementation, as the limitation of this study only involve teachers in Besut district. So it is recommended for the study to be widely conducted to the all primary school teachers in Terengganu. Okay, next, it is recommended to integrate qualitative research which utilize the interview method to find out to what extent the implementation of online learning, as this study only use a quantitative approach. So teachers cannot expand what are their thoughts about the online learning implementation. And the last one, further studies could include students as sample to investigate their opinions, readiness, and barriers they face during the online learning implementation. As online learning involves teachers and also students, therefore, I think it is fair that this study also could be conducted to the students in future. Okay, next. Implication. As for the teachers, this research might motivate and assist teachers to enhance their knowledge, skills, and understanding of online learning. Besides, this research finding also useful as additional information for teachers' personal development plan to improve their online learning mastery. And the last one, this research finding also help teachers to prevent the barriers of online learning implementation, which can affect the quality of their teaching. As for the school administrators, this This research finding help them to be more aware of students' engagement in online classes. In relation to this, they are responsible in seeking students' reasons behind their absence during online learning classes. School administrator also can refer to this study to organize consultation for the students and workshop for the teachers to improve online learning teaching and learning quality. And for the JPN and MOE, this study could help them to monitor teachers' competency and readiness in online learning. And besides, JPN and MOE also need to reward the teachers who are excellent in conducting online learning. And the last one, they need to address the poor internet connection problem by providing gadgets with free internet to the teachers who are facing the technology problems during the online learning implementation. I think that's all for me. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. The ceremony will continue with a question and answer session. Please welcome Sir Asman bin Muhammad Noor and Dr. Noor Juliana with the affirmative.
Okay, thanks a lot. Okay, me for prepared for what we have prepared and they were presented. But as sure, so we are here to maybe talk about even something else. Yeah. Teachers' perception of online learning packaging to the faculty. The teachers' perception on online learning during the COVID-19 pandemic. We are focused on content here. Maybe so teachers, how many teachers you focus here? One teacher. One teacher.
Okay, I know.
Yeah, so it
can give a meaning.
For it, for the mind, for the okay. So background studies. Okay, so I think the problem. Teachers, I have been and of the research. So normally for that is a big focus on the future review, but it's really here. Yeah. So the first question is called so we try with calculator. Okay, population example. Okay, so you are doing survey here and then you focus on teachers in district. How many school here?
7 selected.
Okay, population primary school teacher in versus Terengganu. Example. Okay, so what's your aim here? I'm not sure. So what is your aim here? You say, what's the difference between other districts?
Because I had my practicum in the soup and I faced the
how do you pass that question?
Online.
Online. Okay. So so we are saying here. So what's so what's the difference between school in person compared to other part of Malaysia?
In terms of the location,
Dan share here. Apa yang kita nak bermula sekali boleh pakai unit yang pokok atau mic. Pokok itu mic bukan di kapal ini. Apa yang ada question? Adakah guru tentang
pelaksanaan pembelajaran atas talian masa pandemik COVID-19.
Adakah you mention betul? Tak ada pun saya nak guru pandangan guru kan? Kan pandangan guru ketika pandemik perception during online learning. Consider
Primary school.
Okay, primary school.
In the this week.
distributed for the rules. Ada kan? Okay,
So,
so
no
what I'm
need
saying
to
here, so
mention.
yeah, what I'm saying here, the population is primary school teacher in Malaysia. But then because so I don't know of people, people. So the sample gonna be primary school teacher in secondary school in Pesut. Okay. That's what I'm here. Okay. So the population could be primary school teacher Malaysia, but then the sample could be primary school teacher in secondary school in Pesut. Because there's no five differences that we consider. Okay. So if you have Pendidikan, but then in rural area, population could be Pesut. That sample could be selected school. It could be.
So,
But then your aim, I'm not sure, activity. So my aim here is for the teacher perception, teacher perception of online learning. Okay,
So-
but then,
you mean that the general one is the primary school teachers, and my sample is only specific for
I'm
Besut
not
only.
sure. I'm sharing. So it's up to you. If the way this is telling me what you mean. If you mean just, I don't know about but normally when we talk about Pesut, we are talking about Kuala school. I think this should be a thing. And then because you are familiar with Pesut, so you
That
focus on
is the limited. That's why in the recommendation I suggest to.
So the sample could be a school in Pesut, population could be a school in Malaysia.
I see.
I'm not sure. So normally, I'm not sure. So normally when we come to listen, okay, so IPG, okay, sample IPG data type. Yeah. Okay, kemudian. You. Okay, so questionnaire. Okay, so we have a letter, a question letter, conference over. Okay, so when it comes to a questionnaire, so we go for finding. So this is part we would like to know. Okay, how do you present this data? Can you go to your data? Data analysis procedure. Data analysis procedure. Okay, so descriptive analysis. This would be SPSF. It's over vision 26 and frequency and percentage. What do you mean by frequency and percentage?
Frequency, how many teachers agree with the statement that I write in the document.
Percentage.
Percentage. Frequency, percentage.
Percentage.
Frequency, how many teachers, and percentage, the out of how many teachers.
Yeah, for qualitative, we best with this thing. Okay, we can ikut your finding. Okay. Can we see what we have here? Percentage, frequency there, percentage.
That is for the construct for section A, which the background information, but I didn't specify that because my research objective only consists of this thing.
Okay, so we need to have a number and then it here.
Oh,
okay. So for what do you call first part demographic fact, demography. So it's chapter 1. Yep. So we need to have that n of the number and the percentage there. Okay, so we need to set the question, but then normally this one's for the master. Okay, for A level, so normally we need that. Okay,
so
you can,
for the clearer picture.
Yeah, because you mentioned that. You mentioned. Okay, but then normally for degree, so we need
But
that.
I mentioned because it's only for
No,
demographic.
we don't care about demographic. Demographic tu umum je. Okay, siapa nama anda tu sebut kita. Anda kau katakan semua dia tak boleh combination between male and female. So we this
So it is recommended to.
Yes. No, recommended. You have to. Okay. So when you come up with the for example, you present in chart. You can give a number.
That's a percentage frequency.
So normally, and then when it comes to letter two, so we have scope, for example, teacher opinion online, so we have a question there. Okay, so in table form, present the finding in table form, then number and then percentage. Then you nampak case. So we need that one. Okay, kita tak nampak.
Okay, so I need to insert the table of the
Yeah.
findings.
So, and then for this one, you can
So So this is like the overall lah.
Yeah, so this one you can plug. Kita tak nampak contoh lah yang tadi kita plug juga.
So that table like more clear on how many
Yeah,
teachers
that's
agree with
supposed
the
to happen because
statement.
we have section there. So teacher perception,
Mm.
okay, teacher readiness, okay, barrier, okay, then question here, something like that. Okay, and then for demographic data, you have to be combination between the teachers, apa yang all teachers is up to you, right? We don't need that one for sort of nature. Okay, so that's one of them. So for me, that's what we focus on. When it comes to question of year. Yeah, of course, for normal research, so then we go for your research question, then your finding, it's for finding, okay, and then discussion based on your finding.
Yes.
Okay, so based on your finding, so if you will refer to your teacher review and also your questionnaire. So research finding. Okay, so teacher, the teacher positive view on academy indicate that the teacher had a profound readiness. Okay, so your finding. Okay, this one. Okay, and then okay, so okay, so I think so maybe they use the implication or okay, finding. Sorry, suggestion. Okay, so based on your findings, so what we so what? So based on your findings, so what? Okay.
Based on my finding.
Then what you like to share?
Yeah, various and ready.
I know. Go to the next slide, please. Okay.
Sorry.
Okay. So this is okay. So yes, discussion of clarification. So this is based on the study. Okay. So this is the finding, and then this is your discussion or suggestion based on your study. Yeah. Okay. So yeah. So this is the recommendation or suggestion based on your study. The teacher, the researcher, and then do DPS and Minister of Education. Yes, go. Okay. And then okay, so we have recommendation there. So this is the recommendation. Okay. So this could be recommendation for further research.
Yes.
Okay, so okay, because okay, so we come back to identification. Okay, so this one considered based on a study. So suggested to teacher or debate. Let's say okay, dapat salah questioning. This one you be able to testify whether your recommendation is based on your questionnaire. Okay, so for example, teacher help to prevent barrier. Okay, for example, okay, so ada salah masuk dia. Okay. Yeah, I know. Okay, so kita response point itu bercandakan panggilan. Okay, dalam kucing tadi ada discussion tak? Oh, okay. Saya harus buka. Ya, silakan kita lepas ya.
Implication.
selesa kerana ni.
Standard question like multiple choice questionnaire only requires the respondent to answer on the dictated point given only. So they cannot write their other perception beside of the stated items.
So for questionnaire normally we have what is the one skill questionnaire and then apa so and then maybe we like that maybe mix method questionnaire about this. So that's all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Alhamdulillah, with the end of the presentation earlier, our presentation session this evening will now end. Congratulations to all presenters who have successfully presented their studies today. It is hoped that all teacher trainees gain various input today, including constructive comments and suggestions for improvement and refinement of their research report. I would like to thank the panel of assessors, lecturers, teachers, trainees of IPG Campus Datuk Razali Ismail, and fellow audiences who were willing to attend the seminar today. Can I have Sir Azman bin Muhammad Noor and Dr. Juliana bin Muhammad Najib to step up and receive our humble souvenirs as a token of our appreciation? With that, I end today's session. Assalamualaikum.
Yeah, you may